It was supposed to be just another charity gala, polished floors, glimmering chandeliers, and champagne flowing like water. But what happened that night would change the course of one man's life forever. Jonathan Wycliffe stood stiffly near the back of the ballroom, dressed in a bespoke navy suit, his salt and pepper hair neatly combed. He wasn't a man who attended events for pleasure. As a billionaire CEO, he had grown used to moving through life with purpose, not sentiment. His gaze drifted around the room, scanning the elite of Manhattan society, but always returning to one spot, his 9-year-old son, Caleb. Caleb, confined to a wheelchair since birth due to cerebral palsy, had never walked, never danced. His mind was sharp, filled with questions and curiosity, but his body didn't always obey. Jonathan loved his son fiercely but didn't always know how to reach him. There were walls, emotional and physical, that money couldn't fix. He hired the best therapists, flew in specialists from Switzerland, and built therapy rooms in their penthouse. Yet, nothing seemed to bring joy to his boy's eyes. That night, the gala was intended to raise funds for children with disabilities. Jonathan had agreed to sponsor the event but kept himself emotionally detached. He believed money was the solution to most problems, until he saw her. She moved like a melody, graceful, purposeful, and glowing with an inner light. Her name tag read Ava. She was a waitress, dressed in the standard black uniform, weaving between tables with a kind smile and tired eyes. Nothing about her seemed extraordinary, until Caleb smiled at her. It happened when she leaned down to offer him a drink, crouching so her eyes met his. She spoke softly, warmly, without pity. Caleb responded with a rare giggle, pointing at the dance floor where couples swayed in rhythm. Ava looked, then back at him. "Do you want to try?" she asked. Jonathan was about to intervene. Was this woman mad? Caleb couldn't dance. He barely had control of his arms. But before he could speak, Ava gently placed her hand in Caleb's and stood upright. "I'll follow your lead," she whispered. What happened next silenced the room. Ava pushed his wheelchair to the edge of the dance floor. The band shifted into a soft instrumental. Then, with a grace that defied logic, she moved around Caleb's chair, holding his hand, letting him guide her movements. She exaggerated each small motion he made, turning them into fluid, beautiful dance steps. Caleb's eyes widened. He wasn't watching, he was creating. He wasn't just a spectator, he was dancing. And for the first time in Jonathan's life, he saw his son not as broken, but as whole. People around the room began to stop and watch. Silence turned to smiles, then a soft ripple of applause. But Jonathan couldn't move. His heart, so long encased in ice, cracked. After the music faded, Ava knelt beside Caleb again. "You're an incredible dancer," she said. Caleb beamed, cheeks glowing. Jonathan finally approached, throat tight, unsure what to say. "Thank you," he managed, his voice barely a whisper. Ava looked up, surprised. "He led," she said. "I just followed." He studied her, her dark skin glistening under the soft lights, her eyes kind but exhausted. She looked like she had seen her fair share of hardship but still chose gentleness. "Do you have experience working with disabled children?" he asked, more to fill the space than out of curiosity. She shook her head. "No. But I helped raise my younger brother. He had Down syndrome. He taught me more than I could ever teach him." Jonathan wanted to know more. There was something about this woman, humble, grounded, and deeply human. "Would you consider coming to our home, to spend some time with Caleb?" Ava hesitated, her eyes narrowing with caution. "I'm just a waitress, sir." "You're a miracle worker," he replied. Over the following weeks, Ava began visiting Caleb at Jonathan's home. She never treated him as fragile. Instead, she saw him as full of potential. She sang with him, painted with him, laughed at his jokes, and encouraged him to express himself in ways therapy never had. Jonathan found himself watching from the hallway more often than joining in. He couldn't understand how she reached his son so naturally. She didn't use charts or exercises. She used heart. Slowly, Ava's influence began to change Jonathan, too. He started arriving home earlier. He joined them during music sessions. He even danced with Ava once, clumsily, with stiff shoulders, but Caleb clapped with delight. The transformation was subtle but profound. One evening, after Caleb had gone to bed, Jonathan invited Ava to sit in the rooftop garden. The city lights shimmered below. "I spent so many years trying to fix him," Jonathan said quietly. "As if he was a machine with missing parts. But you just loved him as he is." Ava looked at him, eyes soft. "He doesn't need fixing. He just needs to be seen." Jonathan nodded slowly. "And I didn't see him." "Not really. You see him now." There was silence. "The kind that heals instead of hurts." "Why do you do it?" he asked finally. "You don't get paid much. You work long hours. Why go out of your way for us?" She looked up at the stars. "Because someone once saw me when no one else did. My high school teacher believed in me. She made me promise I'd pass it on." Jonathan leaned back, overwhelmed. For the first time in years, he didn't feel alone. Months passed. With Ava's presence, Caleb bloomed. His speech improved, his emotional outbursts lessened, and he even started drawing stories, stick-figure comics featuring himself as a superhero. He called them Captain Wheels. Jonathan began funding art and dance programs for disabled children in Caleb's name. He partnered with Ava to develop a non-profit, Lead the Dance, focused on inclusion through creativity. Ava took charge of community outreach, while Jonathan handled the business side. But perhaps the most beautiful transformation was personal. Jonathan was no longer just a father who provided. He became a father who participated. And he was no longer the emotionally closed billionaire, he became a man of compassion. One night, after a particularly joyful event where Caleb danced with dozens of other children in wheelchairs, Jonathan walked Ava to her car. "I used to think money was the most powerful thing in the world," he said. "But now I know, it's empathy." Ava smiled. "It's never too late to learn how to dance." Jonathan reached out and gently took her hand. "Then teach me." And under the dim streetlight, in the soft rhythm of a quiet city night, the billionaire and the waitress danced, not as symbols of wealth or struggle, but as two people forever changed by the heart of a child who just needed to be seen. Jonathan would later recount this moment in his memoir, not the deals he closed or empires he built, but the night he saw his son dance and finally understood what life was truly about. A waitress taught him that. A child reminded him. And in that reminder, his life was never the same.